Right, here we are.
Good evening.
It's the VC session number 3, back after 1 month, and it's Basehead 4.
And I can't remember what my name is actually. Special K, I think it is.
So, our latest session. Hello to everyone. Thank you to the people who've been commenting on the other videos. And we'll get straight stuck in to what we've been listening to today. And we started off with Adrian Belew. This is a Japanese import, Lone Rhino, from the early 80s. Adrian Belew, guitarist with King Crimson, Talking Heads, Frank Zappa. Solo album. It's not bad. There's a few really nice tracks, and we listened to something called In the Moon.
Then we went straight on. I started off with the CD, which is not the coolest thing to do, I guess, when you're doing a VC session. But this is from the CD Absolute Lovers, which is a King Crimson live CD. Really, it's the only way to listen to King Crimson. It's Adrian Belew, Robert Fripp, Bill Bruford and Tony Levin. So we played the track Sleepless.
So
made the cat leave the room, this one actually.
Yeah. I've just been reading this book actually, which is called How Music Works by David Byrne. Highly recommended. Really interesting set of chapters about recording processes, about David Byrne, about what he thinks about music, about the industry. Anyway, reading it just got me interested in re-listening to some of the tracks and the albums that he'd made, and in particular My Life in the Bush of Ghosts, which was a Brian Eno and David Byrne collaboration from 1979. And it's just amazing actually how contemporary this is sounding, even though it's 24 years old. We were listening to the track Come With Us, but really realising how this album had influenced so many things that come after it. They were sort of using cut-ups and basically sampling before sampling existed, and interesting electronic sounds, and also some amazing live musicians. Fantastic album.
Huge influence on the Bomb Squad, that record. I remember reading an interview with Hank Shockley, and he said that was the thing that got them going. Talking about influencing and cut-ups, we went right back then to 1966 and Karl Stockhausen, and we listened to some of Telemusic, which is basically made up of a lot of effectively sampling off the radio, all kinds of voices. It's basically a tape piece. Great record, actually. I mean, hugely influential on a whole load of things. We're getting a lot of glare here. I think we need to move the angle or something. I'm going to move this down just a fraction.
Well, we're not in it now, John.
We're not in it at all. Okay. We're back in it again. There's some horrible glare coming from somewhere.
Okay. So, again, sort of following on from electronic experimentation, working with tapes and loops and stuff, an album by Hugh Hopper, who is obviously the bass player for the Soft Machine. This album, 1984, it was recorded in 1972. This is a reissue, which I picked up a couple of weeks ago. Very interesting album. We were listening to the track called Mini Love, which is basically just Hugh Hopper on bass, percussion, and something called the mellophone. But the album also features Lol Coxhill, Pi Hastings, a whole bunch of people. Very experimental, very interesting album. There's a great little anecdote on the back of the reissue where Hugh Hopper talked about going into the record company executives and having a very uncomfortable conversation about this all-instrumental album that was interpreting 1984. Well worth hunting out.
I'm just going to try something, just excuse me. Okay, just think from a similar kind of time. This is from 1975. This is by Neil Ardley. This is a record called Kaleidoscope of Rainbows. Also features Paul Buckmaster on here playing electric cello. And Paul Buckmaster has been talked about a few times, I think, in various VC sessions recently. He was the cellist who also worked with Miles Davis and Elton John. There aren't many people who worked with Miles Davis and Elton John. This was on the Gull label, famous for putting out Judas Priest records as well.
Wow.
From 1975. And related to that,
Oh.
there's a book that I just revisited recently called Galactic Ramble, which is basically a massive tome, as you can see, which looks at UK 60s and 70s psych, prog, and a whole range of things. It's an absolutely huge book. There's also a companion volume about American music from the same time. When I bought this, it was £20. It now seems to be £200 on Amazon. But if you can get it for anything like a reasonable price, it's really worth it. It's kind of like a amazing records book. It talks about 3,000 different records in here and looks at the reviews from the time. Well, well worth a read.
Well, we normally try and join the dots between our music selections, but there wasn't really a dot to be joined here. But anyway, it was Steve Kahn, the album Public Access on GRP, fantastic rhythm section, Anthony Jackson, Dave Weckl, awful cover, but great music, and we listened to the track called Mambosa with a really nice kind of Latin-y but not Latin-y bass line from Anthony Jackson.
Again, not joining the dots at all, and again, a really awful cover. This is a very good record by Terry Reid called, I can never remember the name of it actually, Seed of Memory. Really nice. Produced by Graham Nash. Listen to a track called The Frame. It's a really good, this one, and also another record by him called The River, absolutely classic records, actually. Great voice, really nice records.
So Terry Reid, a bit of a cult hero. He was known as the artist who nearly made it several times. He was asked to join Led Zeppelin. He played at the very first Glastonbury. Check him out, there's an amazing clip of him singing at the very first Glastonbury on YouTube. Well worth checking out. Anyway, we managed to make a connection here with this next album, which is Songs for Beginners, and is Graham Nash's first solo album. As John said, he produced that last Terry Reid album. We listened to the track, which was it? I Used to Be a King, which features some beautiful pedal steel guitar work from Mr. Jerry Garcia.
It does indeed. Then we went real country, much to Marc's surprise. Played a record called Gene Parsons, called Kindling, which is really interesting record. I found out about this record by the improvising guitarist Eugene Chadbourne, writing a review of this on All Music Guide. And we listened to the track called Sonic Bummer on here. It's a really, if you like kind of country, if you like country rock, it's a really nice record actually, and has a range of amazing musicians on here as well.
So this wasn't not really a country album, but kind of country-ish. James Taylor's album, One Man Dog. Fantastic rhythm section of Russ Kunkel and Leyland Sklar, and a particular track which featured John McLaughlin, which name I can't remember right now, but great album, actually well worth, really just lovely playing, and obviously a bunch of musicians who'd spent a lot of time playing together.
Did the police seem to arrive outside?
Yeah, there seems to be a flashing police light outside the house at the moment.
This is the okay. Now to go right up to date, we've got a record by William Tyler, who's the guitarist with Lamb Chop, and this is his new record called The Impossible Truth. Mixture of kind of solo finger picking, and also some tracks with pretty minimal kind of backing in terms of other musicians and so forth. Played the last track off this, which is called The World Set Free. Really nice record, actually.
Beautiful. Let's look at that gatefold, John.
Gatefold, very pretty gatefold. It's kind of getting a lot of very good reviews, this, and despite that, which sometimes has to be despite that, it's actually really worth getting, actually. He's kind of real standout in terms of his performances with Lamb Chop and so forth, but this is a great record.
And also staying contemporary and now, I know this has been shown by at least a couple of people on the VC, and thank you, Mr. Fatback Funk, for turning me on to this. This is Marc Ribot. Well, it's actually Ceramic Dog is his band. It's a power trio. It's called Your Turn. Great stuff. Just you know, we were noticing there's some really kind of passionate, kind of quite angry music coming out at the moment, and it mainly seems to be coming from people who are just turning 60. But very, very committed, great playing, great energy, very dynamic, very varied, great pressing, great album.
Talking about people turning 60, Marc Ribot, of course, will be playing with John Zorn, who we'll be seeing next month as part of his 60th birthday celebration at the Barbican. Kind of related, this is a band called the Afternoon Saints, and this is a record called the Shirley Jangle. It's an improv record, and it features Christian Marclay, Lee Ranaldo from Sonic Youth, Gustav Muller and Paul Watson. The lineup includes people playing bagpipes and all kinds of different stuff. It's a really nice record, actually. It's a kind of improv, very beautiful artwork. I'm not sure whether you can pick up the artwork properly on here as well. Kind of definitely worth checking out. It's actually 3-sided vinyl with 4 sides etched on here as well. Definitely worth a visit. Christian Marclay, of course, very famous for both as a kind of experimental musician, but also now as a contemporary artist.
Okay, another bang up to date CD. This is by Jaimeo Brown. That might not be the right way to pronounce his name. It's called Transcendence. Really unusual album. He's a drummer. He's been very influenced by a bunch of people called, what are they called? The G-Benz Quilters. And he's basically sampled some kind of old spiritual tunes and vocals and used those as the basis for some really interesting kind of spiritual jazz improvisations. We listened to a fantastic track with Jerry Allen on piano called The Power of God. I think a lot of people on the VC who certainly watch our videos could be very, very interested in this CD, so do check it out. It's just come out.
Really good.
Yeah, it's on the MTM 108 is the catalogue number.
That was a new one on me. I was really impressed, actually. And I don't know why I drew the connection with Joe Henry, and this is his record Scar, which came out quite a few years ago now. And this is a great record. People know Joe Henry. I mean, he's well known as an artist, performing artist, but also as a producer. He produced the Last But One Michel Ndegeya cello album and other stuff. This album also has Ornette Coleman playing on it, which is kind of quite rare for Ornette to play on somebody else's record. And the track we played was the last track called Scar, which has a long hidden version of Ornette Coleman track at the end, just him playing solo against a kind of ambient kind of soundscape. Really good. And while we're on Ornette, let me quickly show you a book and recommend a book. This is a book by Howard Mandel, which is called Miles, Ornette, Cecil, and it's unsurprising about Miles Davis, Ornette Coleman, and Cecil Taylor, and it's a really good read, actually. Focuses on late period Miles, and yeah, if you're interested in these artists, buy this book.
At that point we took a break and came back and listened to a track from this CD, which is the new Todd Rundgren CD, which is called State, and we listened to a track called Imagination. And again, you know, Todd is just such a one-off and such an innovator, such a genius, really. Quite varied, the album, in terms of style, but again, again, he's just right up to the mark and right up to the minute with the sorts of sounds he's using. He's a great songwriter, great singer. What's nice about this CD is there's also a bonus CD which features Todd with the Metropole Orchestra in a live gig in Amsterdam, doing kind of big band orchestral versions of lots of his greatest tunes. So well worth hunting out the CD.
One I really want to get hold of as well is he's got an album out of where he has bossa nova covers of a lot of his well-known tunes, which is supposed to be great. And I've heard a couple of tracks, but not been able to find the record. For no other reason that she's a one-off, I then went for Ezra Mohawk. Now, other people have played her fantastic record, Primordial Lovers, and this record is not up to that standard, but there are some really nice tracks on it. The record is called Ezra, and it came out later than her first 2 or 3 records. Ezra Mohawk was one of the first women to play with Frank Zappa, was the first woman to play with Frank Zappa, and has worked with a whole range of other people, and played the track called God Help It on here. Ezra's great.
Another one-off, very individual singer-songwriter is Shawn Phillips. I think his first albums came out in the late 60s, and he was very much a sort of psychedelic folk artist. This is his last album for A&M, and it's called Spaced, and it came out in the mid-70s, and basically a collection of tracks that didn't make it onto some of his other albums. There's some great playing from the Headhunters rhythm section, Mike Clark, Paul Jackson, Bill Summers on this, and there's an amazing track called Came to Say Goodbye, a 17-minute sort of Headhunters funk workout, which is a huge surprise if you're used to what Shawn Phillips normally sounds like. Great album.
Then I think thinking of a great kind of rhythm sections, then went for an early M2 album called The Rebirth Cycle, which has, played the track called Yibo, which has basically most of Miles's then rhythm section, Pete Cozy, Michael Henderson, Al Foster, M2 himself, of course, and Bayete on electric piano. This is, I think, a one-off issue on a label called Third Street. Rebirth Cycle, very nice record actually. There's a long track on here which has the most amazing Reggie Lucas kind of guitar solo on it. He didn't solo very much with Miles, but it's great to hear him on this. Highly recommended.
We went from that to some psychedelic soul, The Undisputed Truth, and the album Cosmic Truth, Norman Whitfield production. Very psychedelic cover. I'm sure some people will appreciate that. Gets even crazier when you open it up. There they are. We listened to a track 1990, which was another version of the track The Temptations originally did with Norman Whitfield too. Great album, lots of psychedelic guitar solos. Great version of Down by the River by Neil Young, and also another great version of I Know I'm Losing You.
Talking of Temptations, then went for the Temptations themselves. This has got a price sticker I can't get off. Anyone who knows how to do that would be very appreciative. This is from the Temptations' A Song for You album, and played the track Shaky Ground, which actually has most of Funkadelic as the backing band on it. Nice album, not probably overall up to the standards of the Norman Whitfield records, but that track particularly works very well. And there's a good instrumental called Happy People on here with the same kind of lineup.
We then had to listen to this, Kenny Cox. I know at least a couple of people have shown this. It's a beautiful reissue. It's lovely hard cardboard. It's 2 45 RPM vinyls. I have to say I'm not finding the music that exciting. But anyway, we listened to a track called Lost My Love.
I'm usually quite polite with Marc when we have these sessions, but I have to say I thought that was one of the worst things he's ever played. I think I've probably known you for 25 years actually. Really not good. Then moved on for, it's also got some of the most awful string arrangements I've ever heard. But anyway, for good string arrangements, then went on to The Family, and This is a Prince, obviously, of one of a Prince band, and with fantastic string arrangements by Claire Fisher on there. This is obviously easy to find, and certainly sounds pretty good to me still.
Talking of great string arrangements and string arrangers, David Axelrod played a big role on this album, Release of an Oath, by the Electric Prunes, sort of late 60s album. We listened to the track Holy Are You, which apparently is the track that both Radiohead and The Verve always play before they go on stage. Great music.
Then went to a CD, went by Carla Bley, which is on the What label, which is distributed by ECM. This is her from the record Sextet, and played the track called Lawns, which has some very beautiful, it's a very beautiful, very simple piece. Band's great, Hiram Bullock, Larry Willis, Steve Swallow, of course, Don Elias, and Victor Lewis. Really nice record, actually. A number of people have covered Lawns as well. And there's a great YouTube video with her playing it just with Steve Swallow up, if you need to go.
Following on, keeping with a very mellow mood, the album Slow Dive, the band Slow Dive, I should say, the album Pygmalion, and the track we listened to was Crazy for You. And thank you very much, Mr. Prog and Jazzman, for turning me on to this album. Much appreciated.
No particular collection to a kind of early Arto Lindsay solo record, but also under the name Ambitious Lovers. This was on the EG label, which was a subsidiary of Ireland. Had kind of close connections with both Robert Fripp and Brian Eno at the same time. I love Arto Lindsay. I mean, I loved him with DNA, and I love his solo stuff, and I love his stuff with the Ambitious Lovers, and played the last track off this, which is called, last track on side one, which is called Too Many Mansions. Start hearing the real Brazilian influence coming through on this record as well.
For some reason, we were listening to She Said, the last track on side one of the Revolver Beatles album. Just a great album. I just listened to the whole album again earlier this week and just was reminded of how incredible it was, actually, how varied, how many boundaries were being smashed really with this album. And some great drumming actually from Ringo on She Said.
Great record. I mean, kind of, yeah. Cosworth, you kind of think you know these Beatles records back to front, but sometimes just listening to them is a real revelation. No particular connection, but from kind of great drumming, I suppose, to great bass playing, and went to Diana Ross and Supreme's Love Child album and played the track called, I can never remember the name of it. It's about the train being gone anyway. Fantastic, with some fantastic James Jameson playing on it as well. It's a really nice record, actually, this one. It's kind of, I mean, around this time, Motown albums are not the kind of always that good all the way through. This one is definitely a good one all the way through. And it relates to
another book plug here. This is Standing in the Shadows of Motown. It's a book just devoted to the bass playing of James Jameson, and features loads of, you get sort of either CDs or cassettes, CDs really now, with loads of very famous bass players talking about what James Jameson meant to them, and playing versions of his bass lines. If you're interested in the bass, check this book out.
And you don't have, you don't have to be a bass player to read it. Actually, it's a really interesting book.
Oh, and then I had a track.
You did.
Kind of loosely staying with Motown, although by this stage Norman Whitfield had left Motown. An album called Nitro. Kind of not the best album, but a fantastic tune called Dreaming, which for those people who like bands like Roy Ayers, Ramp, the track Dreaming has just got one of those beautiful kind of floaty roads, rare groove.
Sorry, don't mind.
Just destroying the furniture. Really nice tune. I think you can pick this album up pretty cheaply. Don't worry, Joe, we'll sort it out later. So that's Nitro. He's back.
I'm back after smashing the room up. Okay, from Nitro, no particular connection, I have to say, but we went to, I think I played Laura Nyro before actually, but this is from her Christmas in the Beads of Sweat album, and we play the track Christmas in the Beads of Sweat, in fact. No, Uptown in the Chinese Lamp. Really nice record. I'm a huge fan of Laura Nyro. I think she's a fantastic artist, and this record is great. There aren't many records which have both Duane Allman and Alice Coltrane on it, and this one has.
We moved on to Phil Upchurch and the album Upchurch, a Charles Stepney production. Donny Hathaway on keyboards, obviously Phil Upchurch on guitar. Really lovely album, came out on Cadet in the late 60s. We listened to the track called You Couldn't Be True, which sounds like it has the Rotary Connection doing vocals, although on the album it says it's the James Mack Singers, but well worth hunting out. And also the original first version of Black Gold of the Sun, which is just called Black Gold on this album.
Then, absolutely no connection whatsoever, then went to a record which has Biwa and shakuhachi music from Japan on it, and listened to one of the Biwa songs, which by Katsuyama Yokoyama. Very nice record, this. Kind of beautiful sleeve. Folds out so forth. Look at that. Also has sleeve notes by Yanis Xenakis as well, the famous composer. I mean, this is the ultimate kind of music of peace. They're in French, actually. Ultimate music of peace, really. I mean, it's beautiful stuff, actually. Incredible kind of breath control. Yeah, good stuff anyway.
Then my last tune was, again, not a great album cover here, folks, but fantastic music. The Stylistics, with the beautiful falsetto voice of Russell Tompkins Jr. This is produced, arranged, conducted by Tom Bell. We listened to the track Payback is a Dog. Just really beautifully arranged, sweet, gorgeous music. Just really celestial, beautiful music.
Then went for something I must admit I've slept on, which is Marvin Gaye's kind of posthumously released album Vulnerable, which is him basically playing, singing standards and, God, this is terrible, let me just take the CD cover off actually so I can get less glare. Him with an orchestra and so forth singing standards, really beautiful. And I was kind of made aware of this by listening to an interview with Lewis Taylor, who we played in the last session actually, who said this was one of his absolute favourite albums. I also found out that it was also Marvin's favourite album he made. Really great record actually, fortunately not on vinyl, only on CD, but I mean I slept on it, so, and I'm very glad I kind of woke up to it and just been listening to it. It's great stuff.
Fantastic. So just really to say, we've been in the background, we've got this album which is called Pachyderm, which is Michael Chapman, who's a singer-songwriter guitarist, but as you probably have noticed if you can hear the music, it's all just his acoustic guitar. Very kind of ambient, very beautiful music.
From the late 60s, I think.
Is it from the late 60s?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well it came out last year.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a new record by
I think it is a new record.
Oh, okay. I beg your pardon. Not
Anyway.
from the late 60s at all.
Well, anything else to say, John?
Nothing at all.
No. Well, thank you very much to everybody who's been watching, commenting, subscribing to the channel. We'll hopefully be back in a month. We'll do a full report on the John Zorn concert.
Yeah, indeed.
I'm also seeing Ryuichi Sakamoto and Reggie Watts next week. Should be good.
Should be good.
So, peace to everybody.
Yeah.
Love from us. See you soon.
Take care.